This is the Rich Dad Radio Show. The good news and bad news about money. Here's Robert Kiyosaki.
Hello. This is Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, broadcasting from Scottsdale, Arizona, Old Town Scottsdale, Arizona, where it's either heaven or hell, and right now in the middle of hell. It is hot. So anyway, we played the song, as some of you may recognize it. It's the song from The Apprentice, which was Donald Trump's reality TV show, and today he's President Trump. So what does that have to do with today's show? And today's show is for all of you people who are entrepreneurs or want to be entrepreneurs. And it's about the number one tool or skill, or I don't know what you call it today. You either got it or you don't have it. And it's the tool called social media. And I was kind of laughing because, I always watch these people attacking Trump, on the Democrat side or CNN, and the battle of Fox versus CNN. And, it's such a boring battle. and people are now calling Bernie Sanders, who's running for president for the second time, he ran against Hillary Clinton, for those who may not remember, they now call him Comrade Sanders. And I'm going, Jesus. And most of this is they have to oppose Trump. I mean, you can't be like Trump because he'll kick your butt in the world of capitalism. And so we have all of these guys now, like Sanders and Warren and all these characters up on stage, and they're all trying to be more communist than the capitalists. And the reason I chose the song from The Apprentice is because these clowns, they refer to him as Trump as a reality TV show guy. These clowns do not realize that that's the reason Trump wins. It's because he's media savvy. He sucks. In the moment, he and I were supposed to write a book together, but a third book. And in 2015, he was on this Rich Dad radio program, and he says, I can't do it because I'm going to run for president. It was like he announced on the Rich Dad radio show. And ever since then, he has sucked the air out of the media. Because as those clowns who hate, I'm not Republican or Democrat, I'm not trying to take sides here, but everybody has got to go so against him because he's so media savvy. So he had his reality TV show, and now every morning everybody wakes up to see what the guy is tweeting and twatting and all this stuff. I mean, that guy is media savvy. So that's a long way of saying is that if you're an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur or a struggling entrepreneur, you've really got to be media savvy, primarily like on YouTube and those channels. So if you really want to make money, it is one of your most important skill sets today is how do you get into the media world? And the good news is you don't need to be a CNN or a Fox. You can be a little person sitting in your little room with your little iPhone or whatever, how you guys do it, and you can make money all over the world. And so that's why I have a little bit of a problem with all these wimps that these socialists are going after. These poor people don't have jobs, they don't have money, they need free education, they need free fruit, free manicures, free pedicures. Well, why don't they learn to get on social media and do something and say something? Any comments?
There's so many ways to make money on the internet these days, but we got a really special guest today. He's just a really great guy. His name is Brian Rose, and he's the founder and host of London Real. And what London Real is, it's kind of like Richard Branson when he took on British Air, and he came up with Virgin Airways because he wanted to kind of be the underdog. So Brian sort of did the same thing because he wants to go after the BBC and all these traditional news stations with all this bad news. I don't watch traditional news anymore because I leave depressed and kind of just down. So Brian's really made a name for himself and for London Real, and it is online. It's on YouTube. It's a podcast, and he has a huge following. And really what his mission is he wants, as he says, he wants quality content that actually improves people's lives, opens their mind, and has a lasting impact.
Yes.
What a novel idea.
And I want to thank Brian because I've been on this program 3 times now, and Kim, you're just on it, right?
Yeah, just on it a couple weeks ago.
And so Brian is one of the most impressive guys. He comes from Wall Street, not similar to Trump, but he comes from the finance world. and he moved to London, and he started in his little apartment in London, and now he is a media force throughout the world. He's bigger than many TV stations now. So that's the power of today's subject. For all you people out there who want to make more money, be more effective, get your message out into the world, today's program is for you. Or you can listen to Comrade Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or AOC and talk about how Trump's a bigot and all this stuff, and it doesn't get you anywhere. But anyway, you can do that too, and you can talk about how the rich are ripping everybody else, or you can just get rich. The choice is up to you. So I want to welcome to the program Brian Rose. He's the founder and host of London Real. One word is London, second word Real, R-E-A-L. And he's a media and transformational company, best known for his weekly live video talk shows. Like I said, Kim was just on it. I've been on it 3 times right now. And the more I get to know Brian, the more impressed I get. Very, very generous man. Like I said, it's not the media, it's the message. So for all of you out there who have a message, this is the guy you should listen to today. So Brian, first of all, thank you for having Kim and I on your program. And second of all, welcome to the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Well, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm a big fan of both of you and what you do and your messages. And it's funny, you brought back some great memories there. When I started doing this about 8 years ago, my tagline was putting the BBC out of business. And for an American in London, that's a pretty bold thing to say. But it was always an inside joke because the BBC is actually funded by the government via taxation of individual people. So you actually can't put it out of business or you go to jail.
I didn't know that.
But I always thought it was funny and it got a lot of people's attention. And the truth is we're living in an attention economy right now. And it's all about getting people's attention. And the biggest problem that any business person can have or a politician or anyone out there is obscurity. Because if I don't know you, I can't do business with you. If I don't know you, I can't vote for you. And you can see it now with the Democrats. You've got 24 people, they're all struggling not to be obscure. And so I'm in the attention business. And that's what we've been doing for 8 years, getting people's attention by creating. And as you said earlier, Robert, everyone has these tools. It's never been easier to create ideas, to create a business online. You just got to get out there, understand how to do it, and get the attention. That's what it's really about.
Right. So would you mind, I've heard this one statement, every kid in China wants to be a rocket scientist, and every kid in America wants to be on YouTube.
They all want to be famous.
So anyway, would you mind giving us your evolution from Wall Street in America to London in a little apartment and now to be a media force, in many ways more powerful, more influential than the BBC? How'd you do that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I grew up in San Diego, and I was really into computer science and science fairs. I went to the California State Science Fair, and I ended up going to the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Boston and got a degree in engineering and really got very interested in finance. And I went to work for Wall Street when I was about 22 years old and really got excited about finance, learned a lot about derivatives and trading. And it ended up bringing me to London, where I spent 9 years in the credit derivatives business here. I had all the top banks as my clients. I was doing business with Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and the Royal Bank of Scotland and all of these different companies, even Lehman Brothers. I remember when it fell, I had about 6 clients over there who lost their jobs. And so it was an exciting time, learned a lot about how to make money. But at the same time, I was looking for something else, and I could see that social media, the internet, online, YouTube was starting to kind of kick off, and I wanted a new challenge. And so I walked out of my job and I started broadcasting on YouTube in 2011 with just a few webcams. Nobody was really doing this back then. And I knew that if I put in the time and I created value, that I could build something important. And that's what we've been doing.
So Brian, there's so much information on the internet. There's so many people out there talking and got the podcast and everything. How do you differentiate yourself from all these other people? I
stick to this 4-letter rule that I always follow and I teach my students. And that's this concept of QVCA. And that stands for quality, value, consistency, and authenticity. And that's what you need to do if you want to establish yourself online. And even if you look at, what Donald Trump does, you can see he uses all four of those things. So again, quality, you got to make sure that you're putting out things that are of high quality and of relevance. So if you watch the interviews with you two, we're in, 6 camera, high definition, high production value video. Value, people are learning something from the content that I put out. Really important. Consistency. We're producing 2 full 2-hour episodes, every single week. And then authenticity. I want to be really who I am. I want to talk about my background. I want to talk about real problems and real solutions. So that's been the key, and that's what I teach everyone. And if you look at the winners in this space, the ones that win the attention economy, that's exactly what they're doing.
And let me play not devil's advocate, but what? So who are the failures on YouTube? I mean, they don't have any quality, they have no value, they have no consistency, they have no authenticity. I mean, could you give the other side of it? What happens?
Well, a lot of people see what's on YouTube and think, okay, I can just be another vlogger. I can just be someone. And what they end up doing is, first thing they do is they try to copy someone else's style. So again, they break that 4th rule, which is authenticity. And with online media, especially long form content, people can smell a fake and they can smell a rat a mile away. This isn't like a short piece on the BBC or on Fox News where for 3 minutes you might be able to sound intelligent. Over time, people are going to recognize if you're authentic. So that's the first one. The second one, just the consistency of putting together 2 pieces of video every week. Most people realize that takes a tremendous amount of effort, and they kind of end up quitting. And back to the other rule, sometimes people put content out that just doesn't add value to anyone's life. They talk about their own life.
There's a lot of that out there. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot of that. This is look at my breakfast.
Yes.
Look at my this.
Here's
look
what
at
I'm
my
wearing
that.
today. Yes.
That's
yeah.
all.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, we're from Hawaii.
Oh my gosh.
And these Japanese tourists come to this great little,
Like a
farmer's
market. Yeah.
Farmer's market, and they're discussing their plate lunch. I just crack up. I said, who in the world wants to watch you eating a plate lunch? But apparently they're all sitting there, on
taking
YouTube
their photos
with their plate lunch.
Yep.
Going, oh my God.
Yeah, it's not a way to build anything that's going to last or be super relevant unless you really think about those 4 core principles. And so that's what I stick to, and that's what the winners do. And if you look at what they do, back to Donald Trump. He is not.
Oops.
Oh.
Oops. Donald Trump. He was on Donald Trump.
More than 5.
Oh, hang on, Brian.
You
there?
cut off.
We lost you when you started talking about Donald.
So you can just talk about
Maybe the BBC is listening. Oh.
Brian, are you back?
Yeah, I'm here. Did you
Okay.
lose me for a second?
Yeah, we lost you, but you were talking about
Donald Trump and
why Donald Trump's successful. So
yeah.
you just pick it up there.
No problem. So if you look at Donald Trump, he uses the media as a tool to make sure that he's on people's mind, and that makes him relevant. And you can see the biggest problem that most of the Democratic candidates struggle from now is most of them are failing in obscurity. I couldn't name more than 5 of the candidates, and they're now on stage trying to one-up each other in order to become relevant. And it's kind of funny to see that that's what they've gone to, as opposed to going out with these bold, strong statements. So again, we're in the attention economy right now. Attention is more important than money to a certain extent. And if you look at even YouTube, which is my platform, that is always trying to pull you in and take as much time of your day as possible. And all the great tech companies are pulling you in for attention because that ends up being long-term value. So if you can understand that game, you can use it.
And one thing that I see too, Brian, that you do, that Donald definitely does, and some of these successful bloggers, YouTubers do, they know their audience. They know who they're talking to. So Donald nailed his audience. He knew who he was talking to, and he talked right to them. But then there's people that just talk to everybody, and they think that whatever they throw on the wall, hopefully something will stick. But you've got to know who you're talking to and know your audience, yes?
Yeah, that's the biggest mistake that a lot of people make is they try to be too many things to too many people. And there's a concept with the internet called the long tail. And there's a great book about that. And the idea is that you can go out there and find a small audience that are going to be your huge fan base. And the idea is you really want to speak to that, what I call a micro niche, a small group of people. And you can build an entire business on, say, 10,000 or 100,000 customers out of 7 billion people in the world. And, Donald Trump understood his audience very well, much better than the public who just didn't get it. They thought he was talking to everyone and he wasn't. So knowing your audience is crucial, and you can't please everyone. That's the biggest mistake I think a lot of people make on social.
Boy, this first half went really quickly. When we come back with Brian Rose again, he's the founder and host of London Real, REAL, and his website is londonrealtv.tv.
Londonreal.tv.
Right. And we come back, we'll be talking to Brian about questions I have also. You have long form versus short form. And as you know, most people have the attention span of a roach.
Actually, the attention span today, I believe, is like 8 seconds.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about long form versus short form. We're going to talk to you about, or ask you questions about how you make money or the subscription model. And number 3 is very important. When I was in your office in London, you were telling me you actually teach your skill. I mean, you're so generous, like which you are, a generous man or human being, but you actually teach people how to do what you do. So when we come back, we'll be going more into that, which I think is, I don't know, the technology, the tool, the skill is how do you become a force on social media today. So we'll be right back. Hello. This is Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. And the reason I'm playing that song, we're talking about former real estate guy, Donald Trump, who is now President Trump. But we're talking about how a lot of the people that hate him just call him a reality TV show guy. He's a much more than that. This guy dominates the airwaves today. I mean, people love him and hate him. And I mean, he's just making more money, political capital too, using social media. So that's our story today. Our guest today is Brian Rose. He's the founder and host of London Real, LONDONREAL. His website is londonreal.tv. And you can listen to the Rich Dad Radio Show anytime, anywhere on iTunes or Android, and all of our programs are archived at richdadradio.com. We archive this program because we are an education company, and one of the best ways to learn is listen or repetition. So if you listen to this program one more time, 2 more times, you'll pick up whole new distinctions, because a lot of times it takes a while for the brain or the mind to absorb what is being said at this time. So a lot of times you read a book for a second time, you watch a movie for a second time, or you swing your putter 3 or 4 times. You get better at things. So all these podcasts are archived at richdadradio.com. Listen to it again, but more importantly, have your friends, family, and business associates listen to it and discuss it. If you discuss it, your knowledge on this subject will go through the roof. So any comments, Kim?
Yes. So, on another note, we talk a lot about capitalists. And capitalist today is like a 4-letter word. And people think capitalists are evil and greedy and they're the cause of all our social problems. But there's a real need for what you and I, Robert, called social capitalists or conscious capitalists. And I would say that's what Brian is, because Brian started on Wall Street and then in London. But his real purpose is to improve people's lives.
Right.
And he's making good money doing that. And as long as he's creating great value, he should be making a lot of money doing that.
And he started with this big, audacious goal, so I'm going to put BBC out of business. Well, we got CNN over here, but they're putting themselves out of business. Anyway, we're going to talk about social media and how Brian is a generous man because he is a social capitalist. He wants all of us to win. So, Brian, the first question I had is, number 1, is how do you make money at it? And then, are you willing to teach other people? And I think those are the things that our listeners need to know, because it is, in my opinion, the number 1 skill today or tool today of an entrepreneur. So the first question, what is your business model? And you can say as much as you want or as little as you want. But how does a person make money in this genre?
Yeah, it's a great question. And just before I get into that, I wanted to address the conversation that I have all the time. And that's when people ask me about short form content versus long form content, because most of us these days are bombarded by an Instagram feed that just gives us tiny little bits of content. Most of us have hundreds of Facebook friends we've never met. We've got a mobile device that's buzzing in our pockets. But what I've found is that people are really looking for a human connection. They don't feel that connection anymore with all of these devices. And so when they invest in a piece of long form content, when they listen to a Robert Kiyosaki or Kim Kiyosaki for an hour and a half talk about money, they feel something they haven't felt after 2 days of scrolling on their phone. And so there actually is a demand for long form. You just have to present it in the right way and allow people to just take a break from that constant scrolling and make a connection.
And that's Brian, how long is your long form?
So we go as long as it's necessary to understand someone's journey and to get the actionable lessons. So if we have to go for 2 hours or 3 hours, we do. The beauty of the internet is someone can choose to listen to 5 minutes or 50 minutes or 3 hours. And they can do it at their own time when they want. So it's not like television in that sense. And I always tell my guests, if someone watches your entire show, they're a fan for life. And that's what I found. And people really learn that way. I think as humans, we learn from stories. We grew up as hunter-gatherers, as storytellers. That's how we passed on knowledge. And that's exactly what I'm doing these days. Teaching in a different way, not through a university, not through an online course, but through really this kind of long form storytelling. And that's what I'm finding people really are engaging with and building businesses with as well. And that's what we've been doing at London Real.
So look, again, I thank you for being in a program 3 times. For those who may not know this, I've done it twice in London, and once Brian actually flew all the way out here to Scottsdale, Arizona. That is how committed this man is to his audience. So do you ever edit the long form, or is it just raw?
You know, back to that, what I was talking about earlier, one of the 4 rules is authenticity. So we put it out all as one piece, you know, just like you would be listening to the grown-ups talking at the dinner table, or if you were around a campfire, you would listen to the whole conversation. And I think people these days are intelligent enough and they're smart enough to understand what a nuanced conversation has. So we put the whole thing out on iTunes and YouTube, and we also cut it up into small pieces as well. So there are 5 and 10 minute pieces to get people kind of interested. And that there's a real demand for the long form content, even though most people are bombarded with short form.
Got it.
Well, there must be a demand because you have, close to 1 million subscribers to your show?
Yeah, we're just hitting 1 million subscribers on YouTube and another 300,000 or 400,000 on other platforms, and we've just broken 300 million views of our content. So there's a distinct demand for it. We're really seeing that in the last few years.
And is that the primary source of your money, of how you make money?
So we don't make money off the content. I use the content kind of the same way Donald Trump uses Twitter. I use it so people can know who we are and understand that we have a mission, a view of the world, a way that we believe business should be done, that people can make money by adding value to other people in any way.
Amen.
And that by making that money, they can help more people. I have so many of my students, Robert and Kim, that come to me that have a poor relationship with money. They think it's dirty. They're uncomfortable selling. But once I explain to them, when they charge money for something, first of all, the customer takes more action. Second of all, they can help 10 times more customers with that new revenue, and they can create value add to the world. And that's something we really preach here.
So, and you don't have to disclose this, but what is it? So people actually pay a subscription. How long is a subscription for? And if you want to disclose, how much is it and all this stuff?
Yeah, so again, we've always treated YouTube and all these social media platforms as content distribution networks. I've never relied on them for income, which means that if for some reason they want to change the algorithm or change the rules, I don't care because I've created my own independent source of revenue. And it all comes down to something that Peter Drucker once said. He said the purpose of a business is to solve a problem. And so when I first started, I had people that were watching and consuming my content. And I went to them and said, what are the problems you're having? And they said, Brian, we want to know how to start our own podcast like you. We want to know how to create a digital business like you. We want to know how to do a TED Talk like you. Can you teach us? And if you listen to your customer and you ask them this one question: what is the single biggest challenge you're currently facing? That's actually two questions in one. The first question is, what do you want? And the second part is, what have you failed to do in the past? That's what a challenge is. And once you can solve that, then you have something you can charge money for. And so we created these intense 8-week programs where we teach people how to get 8 episodes on iTunes of their podcast, to create a revenue generating business, to create a TED Talk and get on stage. And that is our revenue source that funds the media arm of the company.
So it's what you teach is your business, is your profit model, or whatever you call it, income model.
Correct. And by doing that, I think it allows us to just push our content as far and wide as possible. If I was really relying on the content for income, I think I wouldn't even have a 10th of the views or subscribers that I have. But by giving that away as free product for exposure, when people want to implement on what I've talked about, they call me.
So the next question is this then. So do you make any money from a subscription?
So we've played around with the subscription model in the past where people kind of join a community and get content. And we have a small part of our revenue from that. But the bulk of it now is through these 8-week courses where we actually provide an end-to-end solution. And people can walk away and say, I got this one thing.
And are these live courses?
Yeah, I teach them live. We do it through all of this new technology. So we use the Zoom video software, a company that just went public for about 20 billion plus. Yep. And we use Facebook groups where live video is uploaded. And we create this virtual community of people that become almost like friends and family all around the world. And then when they finally come to London for a graduation that we have every quarter, people that have never seen each other, they start hugging each other. It's amazing to see the connection we can make through just a digital virtual community. But I think this is the academy of the future.
So by,
what we're doing
by
here.
using Zoom and other resources, you can teach people all over the world.
Yeah, I mean,
right
now I've got a couple hundred people from, I think, about 34 countries around the world, and I think it's 14 different time zones. I got people in Australia that are up at 3 a.m, people in Tokyo, people in California, and they all upload video. So everybody puts themselves on video. They talk about their passions, their business ideas. They upload their speeches, and we create this virtual community of people that have shared with each other, that also help each other. We gamify it, and at the end, they actually have a result. They create income, they create a speech, they create podcasts, and I measure the results. They're held accountable, and if they don't deliver, then I kind of call them out. So it's a new way of teaching that we're really excited about.
Amen.
That's
brother.
very cool.
And may I ask, how much does your 8-week program cost?
Yeah, so we experiment with a lot of price points, but I like a high price point product because when people pay for it, they invest and they go the distance. So our products now, all of our 8-week courses list for just under $3,000. We also give payment plans for $600 a month. But I find that at that price point, Robert, it makes sure that I don't waste my time, that I'm dealing with people that are serious about the result. It also means that 2 weeks in, when I ask you to do something that's uncomfortable or that scares you, that you're going to do it because you've done what I call the pay price to action. You've already sacrificed something that's important to you, money, and so you want to show up till the end of the course. And I think that's why we get the results that we do, because a lot of people, they want to quit when it gets tough, but they don't want to walk away from that sizable investment.
And that's one of your key points too. About you talk about tackling resistance. One of the keys to success is tackling resistance, doing those things that make you uncomfortable, putting you out of your comfort zone, things that scare you.
Yeah, correct. In my TED Talk, I quoted the author Stephen Pressfield in his book, The War of Art, and he has a concept called resistance.
That's our favorite book.
It's fantastic. And, resistance is anything that stops you from accomplishing your goal. And the thing about resistance is it's directly proportional to the size of the goal you're trying to accomplish. So the bigger the goal, the bigger the resistance. And the biggest source of resistance is yourself, the narrative in your head to convince you that you're too old or you're too broke or all these excuses not for pulling the trigger and starting a business. That's the biggest source of resistance. And we teach people to move through it without emotion. Don't get emotional about resistance. Just note it and then proceed forward.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly with you. Is the more a person pays, the better student they are. And everything we've done for free, we've got a bunch of freeloaders on there. We might get out of 1,000 people, maybe 5 who are worthy, should we say. But when we get something away for free, we get some of the worst people on earth. And I don't mean to disparage them, but that's why I wrote Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I do free radio shows and all this. But when people expect everything for free, then they're not a customer, are they?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we used to teach courses for free and no one finished them.
Yeah.
And it was so obvious. So we give content for free, but when you want to take action, then we ask you to invest in yourself. And then we know that you're going to be there. And it's just better for everyone.
Well, that's the same reason we priced the cash flow game originally at $195 when everybody said it's $29.95, and we're like, well, no, if they pay $195, just as you're saying, they're invested and they're going to play the game versus just buy it and stick it on their shelf.
It's so true. And I always tell the story. I took a transcendental meditation course about 10 years ago, and they charged me $2,000 to learn how to meditate. And I went to every single class. I did everything they said. And today I still meditate, and it's only because they charge that price point. So I know it's important to do that.
Yeah. Well, Brian, how does somebody sign up for this course of yours?
So on our website, londonreal.tv, we've got our 4 accelerators, and they run once every couple months. Again, I teach them live, and we have a live community that all goes through the course together. And so all of the information is there. Again, we teach business, broadcasting, public speaking, and then also lifestyle accelerations, everything from movement to eating to meditation to sleep. And so pretty much have everything.
And what's great about you is you're willing to help other people join in your success, share your success.
It's just such a great way to live life. I enjoyed my time on Wall Street, but it was all about me and my bank account, and I so much more enjoy empowering others and seeing them be successful. It's just a great way to live life. So yeah, we love doing this.
Well, you're doing it very, very well.
So Brian, I really thank you because you inspired me to get off my butt and do more of this stuff. Because, and people say, why do you keep doing it? I said, because my work isn't done. And my job is, I was a student in Buckminster Fully. I always says, the more people you serve, the more effective you become. And so Kim and I have enough money, but the question is, how do we serve more people? So what you're doing, Brian, is spectacular work, and thank you for being part of the whole mission, which is to elevate humanity out of this mess we're in. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, my pleasure. And Robert, I always think back to what you told me in Phoenix. You said, what does God want you to do?
Right.
And I'm always thinking about that, which is a selfless question. What does he want you to do? Not what do you want to do? And so, you both give such a great example of how to serve. So thank you for that.
Right. If I could explain that, because I hear most of those little greedy little bastards calling, I want to do what I want to do. I want to do what I want to do. This is my passion. And I said, what does God want you to do? Well, I want to do what I want to do. And that's what I was talking about. I don't like teaching money, but if I don't, who will? You know what I mean? That's where I come down to. And so I want to thank you for your contribution to all of our lives in the world, Brian.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you, Brian.
Then we come back, we go to the most popular part of our program, which is Ask Robert. We'll be right back. Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, the Rich Dad Radio Show, the good news and bad news about money. Once again, that's a song from The Apprentice, which was President Trump's reality TV show. And I played that because so many people today attack Trump, calling him a reality TV show host or whatever they call him. And that guy is a media genius, and he's kicking everybody's butt. Love him or hate him, he's on your mind. If you hate him, he's got your soul. Because that's all you can think about, that son of a bitch. The guy is a media genius. Love him or hate him. Do you know what I mean? And these yo-yos who can't get any kind of press time at all, just hate him. And all they can do is talk about what a jerk Trump is. But guy is a media star. So today's program is a very important show with Brian Rose of London Real, LONDENREAL, londonreal.tv.com. londonreal.tv. Because if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you better be a rock star. The bigger rock star you are, the better chance of success you have in the real world. Any comments, Kim?
Well, yeah, you got to be a character, and you got to have something to say.
But you have something to say.
You got to have something to say. And I remember the very first time you did your very first talk to a public audience, and you had to give like a 2-minute introduction of your friend Carl, who was an accountant. It was a breakfast business meeting, And you practiced for weeks. You were scared to death. I almost had to take over the wheel driving there because you almost crashed the car.
Yeah, and the reason most people don't have any money is they can't sell. They cannot sell. Sales equals income. That's that simple. And I'm not, my poor dad. I'm not a salesman. So, well, that's why you're poor dad. Yeah. No, salesmen are crooks. But today, if you're not using social media, and our guest is Brian Rose, he says, I'm going to take on the BBC. Well, the interesting thing is BBC has millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars invested in infrastructure, staff, and all this. And here's this one guy operating out of his apartment in London. He takes them on. But Brian understands, like you said, it's QVCA, quality, value, consistency, and authenticity. So entrepreneurs, if you can't sell, you're out of money. And today has never been easier. So that's why we had Brian today, because I meet so many people who are struggling financially when sitting in their back pocket or their purse is a cell phone. And they could market through the world if they ever got their act together, should I say, like President Trump.
Yeah, so I would check out londonreal.tv because there's a lot of information on there, a lot of great interviews, but also Brian's also a great teacher because he's a real teacher. He's teaching from his experience and what he's done and what he does every single day.
And he's very generous with his knowledge.
Yeah, he is.
So, Melissa, we're going to ask Robert. You can submit your questions to AskRobert at richdadradio.com. So, Melissa, what's the first question?
Our first question today comes from Kim in Temecula, California. Favorite book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. She says, Robert, I've just finished your book, Fake, and really enjoyed it. My question is, with all the deep fake issues and fake news from mainstream media, what platforms do you both consume for your news?
Well, that's a great question. Personally, I like the Jerry Springer Show because that's the best reality TV show I know of.
That's such a bad,
I sit
so
there and
bad.
just crack up at how effed up humanity is. But on the other side of it is I really want to know something. It's YouTube. I don't believe a thing CNBC says or Fox News or especially CNN. So I go to YouTube and I listen to opposing points of view. So if one guy says, let's say, the stock market's going to go up, I'll listen to him. And then I'll go to the person who says it's going to crash. It's because it's in the gap between the right and the left or the up and the down is where you get to form your own opinion. So the beauty today is YouTube is filled with crap, but it's also with really great teachers. I mean, fantastic teachers, just fantastic people. And so all these people who are wasting their time, I don't know what they're on YouTube for, what are they watching, because you can watch anything you want, But YouTube is a fantastic teacher, and that's where Brian Rose, and he'll actually teach you how to do that and be successful. But you've got to be QVCA, quality, value, consistency, and authenticity. Comments, Kim?
I think the most important thing is what you just said about, you look at different points of view, different opposing points of view. I mean, I love the TED Talks. I learn a lot from the TED Talks. We have various newsletters that we subscribe to, but even the newsletters, somebody might say this, that's going to crash. Somebody says it's not going to crash. Somebody says they're going to go to printing more money. Some say they're going to tighten more money. So you really, the key for me is you got to really think for yourself. I think that's one of the keys, not just blindly agree with somebody or really do your homework and suss out what really rings true for you. So I'm a big thinker. I'm a big believer in think for yourself, get as many points of view as possible, and then draw your own conclusions.
Get as opposing points of view as possible. That's an open mind.
Yep.
But today, we had Coggins on, David Coggins, who can't hurt me. He says, you want to take their souls. You want to just take their souls. And that means Trump has taken their souls. People who hate him, Trump is on their minds. He's taken their souls. I just love it. I sit there. We all have friends. I was sitting on a plane with a dear friend, and he was screaming and yelling. He says, how could you read that book with Trump? I'm going, hey, I wrote a book with him. Why didn't you? This guy was so... And then another friend of ours from Hawaii attacked this guy who hates Trump. Our friend from Hawaii loves Trump. And these guys are arguing away, going...
It's entertainment.
It's entertainment to us. But if you don't get their minds and their souls, you're out of business anyway. So that's why all you nice people out there, you can't sell. That's why Kim started with, we couldn't sell either. I remember the first time Kim spoke in front of a large audience, it was in Singapore, and she looked like, I hate to say, she looked like somebody cut her out of a cardboard thing. She was so stiff.
I was so scared.
And she had like 500 women in front of her.
2,500.
2,500.
2,500. Yes. I was hoping for a hurricane, an earthquake, a tidal wave, anything at that moment to get me out of my misery. But that's also what Brian is talking through about the resistance. I had to push through the resistance. I didn't want to do it, but I pushed through the resistance, and then you take the next step. But one other point about where you get your news, and we talk about this a lot, Robert. There's facts and there's opinions.
Yeah, and most
a
is
lot
opinion.
of a lot of out there is opinions. And so when you look at something, is this a fact or is this somebody's opinion? Because everybody wants to say their opinion, and I'll tell you how you shut somebody up who's got a lot of opinions. You give them some facts.
Or I don't even care because they'll argue they'll give their opinion on the fact anyway. You see, once a person has got your soul, as Coggins says, I can tell them about, Trump did this. I don't care. He's got them. Trump has got that guy. So I think the lesson is, if you can't sell, you have to steal. That's Tom Wheelwright. He says people who steal can't sell. It is tragic. Kim and I have seen it years and years together. People without money have to steal, and they do it in sneaky little devious little ways, and it's because they can't sell. And so that's why I would strongly recommend for $3,000. He said that's expensive. Oh God, that's cheap. $3,000 for 8 weeks to learn from Brian Rose. Oh my God! And you could make millions? No, at $3,000, he's ripping me off. Well, that's your opinion, you cheap little bugger, you. And that's where the world is at. People just operate out of their little emotions and their cheap thoughts. And that's their problem. So that's the whole lesson there. If you can't sell, you have to steal. If you want to increase your income, sell. Sales equals income. Next question, Melissa.
Our next question comes from Caleb in Omaha, Nebraska. Favorite book, Unfair Advantage. Robert and Kim, you speak a lot about the value of partnership, having good partners, and being a good partner. Would you be willing to share the lessons you learned from partnerships that did not work out?
Hey, they're some of the best.
Mm-hmm. Learn
Look,
the most.
What Kim and I, first of all of our partners today, especially our advisors, can sell. They don't need money. Remember this. This is Tom Wheelwright. He's our partner he's our accountant. He makes us millions of dollars. Tom can sell because he was a Mormon missionary before he was an accountant. He can sell. My best friend Larry Clark was also a Mormon missionary. That boy can sell. And those guys don't have to steal. The worst partners are partners who couldn't sell. They stole. And that's the worst thing. Now the good news is, as we always say, out of every bad partner comes a good partner. So we met Tom Wheelwright, who is our accountant, from a bad accountant. And we met Kenny McElroy, who is our real estate guy, from a bad partner. And so everybody we've ever met who was bad taught us what was bad, but for some reason, God or the Great Spirit sent us the best partners. You look at Melissa and Tony, our Rich Dad Radio guys. We had horrible partners. These guys, I don't know what their name was, but if I saw them today, I'd throw darts at them or something. But because of that, Tony and Melissa showed up, who put on the Rich Dad Radio show. So always don't be afraid of a bad partner, because out of every bad partner has come a great partner. Any comments, Kim?
Well, that's always the way we've looked at it, and that's always the way it's happened. Another personal lesson I've had with bad partners is I found that if they pay lip service to the mission, if they pay lip service to the purpose of the business, if they pay lip service to the values that the business stands for, and they're not aligned to it, you're going to have a disaster. That's a disaster waiting to happen.
Yeah.
And that's happened to us several times where our partners were not aligned on the mission, the purpose, the values, and it ended very badly.
And just remember this, all of our advisors can sell.
And they're aligned to the purpose and the mission.
So if you want to learn how to sell, that's Blair Singer. He has a book, Sales Dogs. please get that book, because if you can't sell, you're going to steal. You're one of these people who say, well, the government I deserve this. Government, I should get free income. I should get free this. I should get free food, free college education. These guys are thieves. And they play into Comrade Bernie and Elizabeth Warren and AOC and all those other communists, because that's who they want to listen to. So please hear me. If you can't sell, you're going to steal. I got even worse stat than that. 40 years ago, the entitlements of America was only 25% of our budget. Of all of our income coming in, entitlements are only 25%. Today, it's 70% and going up. That means for every dollar coming in, 70 cents goes to entitlement programs, because these people are stealing from us. And that's why Comrade Sanders and all those guys are saying we need a universal basic income. We need free college, free food, free medicine, free this. We're going broke with that attitude. And that's what happens when you have a school system run by comrades also, like my poor dad, who don't teach us anything about money. So that's why you have guys like Brian Rose. I know a lot of people hate Trump, but he's got your soul if you hate him. And ourselves, we'd rather teach people to fish rather than give people fish. So anyway, that's the purpose of the Rich Dad Radio Show, whether you like it or not. So once again, thank you to Brian Rose, London Real, LONDONREAL, LondonReal.tv. No, LondonReal.tv. And once again, thank you for your questions to Ask Robert. You can submit them to AskRobert@RichDadRadio.com. And thank you for listening to the Rich Dad Radio Show.
Bow